All right, we shall begin. This is the March 3rd meeting of the Tree Advisory Commission meeting. And as a substitute for our chairman, this is Floyd Alwyn as vice chairman. And I'll have everybody introduce themselves so that everybody knows who everybody is.
Wayne Shopper.
All right, William Swanson, Energy Services.
Kurt Curry, Street Commissioner.
Steve Kaler, City Engineer.
Tony Guggesberg, Advisor.
Tom Schmitz, Park and Recreation Director.
Lisa Langer.
Thank you all. So now we know who everybody is. And the first item is to amend or approve the agenda for today. Any additions to that agenda? If not, then I would accept the motion that we accept it.
So moved.
All right. Second?
Second.
Okay. So moved. That we accept the March 3rd agenda. And then item number 3 would be the amend and approve the January 7th meeting minutes. And anybody want to, well, there are only 3 of us in the commission.
Make a motion to
To
accept the
it as
minutes.
is.
Mhm.
Okay.
I can second
All
that.
right, the motion being made and seconded that we approve the January 7th minutes. Then we'll move on to the old business, item number 4. We'll start with A, Tree Commission reimbursement programs, the 2015 budget and 2016 budget updates, and that is Steve Kaler.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Right after the minutes on your agenda packet is the 2016 tree reimbursement program spreadsheet. And as you might guess, this year we have not reimbursed anyone for tree planting because the ground's pretty frozen yet. But that will, I'm sure, pick up in the spring in a couple of months. Moving on to the budget items, if you scroll down to the bottom of that spreadsheet, we have the budgeted amount, $4,300 for diseased and boulevard tree programs, $500 for home show and rental printing expenses, and $400 for PUC utility bill insert stuffings, and $800 for tree pest policy and education, for a total of 2016 budget of $6,000. That was what was requested by the commission, and that was approved through the process by the city council. In addition to that, the second line from the bottom, there was a budget carryover from the 2015 budget of $4,908. So you have a total available of over almost $11,000 or $10,908 for this year's budget. That is my report. If you have any questions, I can certainly answer them.
I had a question. I think the home show rental, we're sharing that booth with Park and Rec, so that fee of $500 is maybe more than it will end up being, correct?
I wonder if advisory member Guggesberg knows what is the normal booth rate this year?
It varies if you're a member of the chamber or not, but I'm gonna, don't quote me, but I might be around $300 and some.
Mm-hmm.
But it also said for printing expenses, so I don't know if you
Right.
have handouts and stuff, so.
Right. So if it's about $300 for the booth, it'd be $150 Park and Rec, $150 Tree Commission, and then as Advisor Guggesberg mentioned, there's usually some printing expenses.
Mr.
and
Vice Chair,
miscellaneous
last year we had 150, I believe, for the rental and 330 for the printing. So it was close to the 500. But
I guess so.
we will only use what you guys authorize.
Thank you.
Sure.
So that takes care of the exact details as to how much we have and how much we can spend. All right. Thank you, Steve Kaler. Item B, Public Utilities Tree Reimbursement Programs, both years, from William Swanson.
All right, thank you, Commissioners. I guess for the 2015 year, I don't have information with me again this year. I think in our notes from the previous meeting, we've covered most of the 2015 year. And I have something a bit different since we, again, don't have any tree submissions at this point. The included packet shows our budget for the 2016 year, and this would show our total conservation improvement programs meant for various types of energy conservation. In the case of the 2016 year, this includes both electricity conservation and natural gas conservation. And the account that the Tree Commission would most likely have the most interest in would be listed under the Shade Tree Program, about midway through the list. And currently I have $3,000 set aside for the tree programs. And I think there, may be some leeway there. For the 2015 year, we did in fact exceed the $3,000 budget. And I think depending on how our funding is going throughout the year, we could likely exceed that again for the 2016 year budget. May have to look at that a bit more in depth and consider, raising the budgeted amount for the 2017 year. But that's where we're at for the 2016 budget. Are there any questions about the conservation improvement programs or the shade tree program? All right, no questions. That concludes my summary.
Thank you. Buckthorn removal volunteer, which would have been Ellen Vancouver, but she is not here, so we don't have a report on that. Item D, Minnesota Green Corps. Well, of that group, we do have Mark and Lisa that can clue us in on that. Okay.
Well, we met a couple of weeks ago. We and met with some of the city representatives and went ahead with the application. Molly and Mark worked on that application quite a bit, and I know it was, I'm not sure if all the members received a copy of that via email or not, but I know we reviewed it, and I know Tom then.
It's in the packet here,
Okay.
in your computers. If you go to the bookmark
true.
section,
Mm-hmm.
bottom of the bookmark section, you have the various pages of the application as it stands as of yesterday.
And I'm not remembering what the deadline date was. I guess it's probably March 18th,
Yes,
so
I-
that's coming up.
yes.
So it's ready to go, Tom?
Commissioners and advisors, my understanding is that it's just kind of going through a final review to make sure we think we've crossed all the Ts and dotted the Is. It will be going to Park Commission on the 14th of March, and it'll go to City Council on the 15th of March. So we will get authorization, I presume, from the City Council to make the application. Then the application will go in the 16th or 17th, certainly by the deadline of Friday the 18th, be electronically submitted. So I think we're, pretty well set up. There certainly was a nice little focus group meeting a couple weeks ago between commissioners on the subcommittee and staff. and I think we have a good application, a good proposal, a good request. We'll just have to hope that AmeriCorps and Minnesota Pollution Control Agency look kindly upon us. And so just a reminder, when this 11-month staff person would come on board, 11-month participant would be coming in this autumn, I think. Is it September of this year, 2016, for 11 months?
When do we find out if we get the grant? It must be listed in here somewhere. Be in the spring, or maybe we don't know that.
I think they have a pretty quick turnaround.
Okay, it's probably not part of this document.
No, I'll see if I can bring up something on the website.
Well, we sure want to thank that subcommittee for the time and effort they put into it, and now we're going to reap the results later on this month. Thank you, thank you. Okay, item E, utility bill stuffer mailing flyers. Our April and August reserve, at least they were, aren't they, Bill?
Yep, that's, still correct, as of today. Nothing's come up that I'm aware of to, bump us out of those two reservations. And I have checked in, the rough dates that we would need to have, our, stuffers submitted by, is April 7th and then August 7th in order to meet that, first section of, stuffers and mailers. And I guess as far as the creation of the stuffer, I have not seen the latest version at this point, so I think we still have some time before April 7th to have that completed, and perhaps another commission member could speak of it, or advisor.
I was just going to ask you, who's we?
No. Well, I guess, and I guess I'm not sure who the subcommittee was. I think maybe review the notes there. I think Molly was going to take lead on the creation of that, but maybe review the minutes here for a second.
Commissioners and advisors, I seem to recall it's about, 6,500 copies that we run to go into the utility billings. We run a few extra copies, a few hundred extra copies that we have in the past to distribute at the home show. So that timing would mean let's get that done in March, because the home show is April Fool's Day. So it would be good to have one or two commissioners work with staff to design that 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, two-sided maybe, black and white to save costs, and I can make sure it gets printed in time if we get concepts put together in the next couple weeks. So maybe talk briefly about what you might want to put on that, just think here. A two-sided piece of paper, what sorts of topics, springtime. In the past, we've often just highlighted our various programs, reimbursement programs, but there's other topics also.
Well, the April mailing would definitely have to have the big tree contest in it, because August would be too late, wouldn't it?
And Tom, I've found our notes in the minutes. I believe the two topics that were discussed were the big tree contest, as we're discussing now, and potentially bur oak disease.
Oh, yeah.
The last line says, then the last line says Nelson will work on the April flyer. So I guess Molly was gonna work on it. I don't know if she has.
I'll find out from Molly. She'll be coming home tonight?
That's my understanding, yes.
All right. follow through on that. Okay. Item F, the big tree contest was, what we said was gonna be walnut. Timeline similar to last year, but maybe we should indicate that to avoid any kind of confusion, is that it's black walnut.
Oh,
Okay, anybody add to that? Or subtract?
I have to be honest with you, how many species of walnut are there? I guess I'm not, there's black walnut and,
There's English walnut, but it's not hardy here, although a few people have tried to grow it.
okay. It's not
So-
hardy for Minnesota, right,
No.
okay,
I mean, I've seen some growing,
okay,
but they've never produced nuts because I think they freeze out, they freeze back, so.
okay.
So, yeah, you know, as far as walnut, I think most people are only gonna find a black walnut.
Okay,
And you might confuse the issue by saying black walnuts only because, well, do I have a black walnut or is it, you know, the average citizen probably isn't aware that there's
Sure.
pretty well exclusively black walnuts around here.
so we would then be better off just saying walnut,
Sounds
I
right.
agree.
okay?
Mr. Vice Chair, are you gonna put it like a description in the flyer? Because a lot of times, you know, identification, leaves, et cetera.
That's what we have done in the past.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And if there is such a thing that Molly is not all set to work with us on that, then I'll work with you, Bill,
Okay.
so the two of us can put it together.
And if you just, maybe if you would contact Molly and then, let me know what stage she's at, then
Yeah,
I can maybe, you know, take over that if, we're behind.
Bill. Okay, call Molly first, and then I'll let you know. All right, then item G, the home show, April 1st to 3rd. As last year, sharing a booth with the Park and Rec, 150 each, touched on that. And need to staff the booth, which I will make sure it gets filled. So far, it's just Lisa and me,
Put me down for a couple shifts. I'll be around that weekend.
you know. Okay, you want a 3:30 to 6, or 11 a.m. to 1:30?
Now, is this all 3 days, all day?
Well, there's two different shifts, 3 shifts on Saturday, but there's 2 shifts on Friday and 2 on Sunday.
Well, I'm sure Friday I'll be working, so put me down for, I don't know, Sunday shift and a Saturday shift. I can do a couple shifts.
Oh, all right. Then the Sunday shift is 11 a.m. to 1:30
All right,
and 1:30 to 4:30,
put me on the first one. That'd be
first
fine.
one. Well, that's good.
I think Ellen planned on volunteering as well.
Who?
Ellen? Thank
Oh,
you.
yeah, she's usually there as a permanent fixture. Yeah, yeah. Bless her. Right. Okay. Then we move on to H, the EAB, Emerald Ash Board planning. Do we need a subcommittee?
You know, with the grant that's been written,
Yeah,
the grant, we discuss a plan with, if we would get that grant. So maybe that could be part of that, as well as the tree survey, letter J, because those are covered in that, the grant application. I don't know if the forester, I don't think that was in there, the grant application.
I think you're correct.
But the other two are. So we may have that, you know, that might get done for us if we get the grant.
And if, so when is the if?
When we find out in spring, I think we'll find out if we've gotten the grant,
Okay,
'cause then that's part of the grant.
all right. Okay, that ties in with Molly. Ooh, and then we've got the bur oak blight. Another one for Molly. What can we do about that?
What do you do about bur oak blight? I didn't know you could do anything.
You can treat it,
You can.
but you've got to inject fungicide into it, and some of the arborists, can do it, and I think they have been trying to treat a few with good results. So
Is that a one-time thing?
no, it's a yearly thing, I believe. Yeah, because it's kind of new. I don't know a whole lot about it yet, but
So,
hopefully.
but if you treat a tree one time, it's done, or is it you treat it
You'd probably treat it every year,
every
kind
year?
of like they're treating emerald ash borer.
Hmm.
It's kind of a yearly thing. But, cost, obviously, a bur oak tree is quite valuable, but, you're gonna spend a couple $100 treating it each year, but you have to look at the overall health of the tree. If the tree is very healthy to begin with, a nice tree, I would definitely treat it.
Okay,
I have a question, though. So, if somebody in the city of New Ulm isn't sure if they have bur oak blight, how would people know if they have it or not? I mean, how can people do something if they don't know what they have?
Well, that's a very good question, because a lot of times people don't generally look at their trees until something is happening, if the leaves are falling. And generally, with bur oak blight, in the middle of summer, late summer, the leaves will actually start wilting. There'll be wilting leaves on it. On a normal, healthy tree, you see leaves that are wilting, and that's a sign. And sometimes people will get it mixed up with oak wilt. But generally, this bur oak blight just is attacking the bur oaks at this time. So they can call, I suppose, DNR. They can call, I've seen it, and I've let some of the arborists know, and they'll come look at it also. So, just got to call, like I said, either DNR, I think they'll help out, or a licensed arborist.
So if we do a brochure, I think that would be the kind of information
yeah,
to
definitely.
have on there to identify it. Who do you call? How do you get it identified? How do you call the DNR? Who's an arborist you can call? What is possible treatment? What does it cost? I mean, I think that would be information to put on a brochure on bur oak blight if that's gonna be one of our flyers.
Right.
What do you do? Just my suggestion.
Would that information be more apropos for August instead of April?
That probably wouldn't be a bad idea, because by August, it usually shows up, like I said, late summer. So if it's coming out in August, it's something people probably can relate to if they have an oak tree in their yard.
Okay,
Because if you do it in April, people will set it aside and
yeah.
That's right.
forget about it, and then don't have access to the information again.
All right, those things we will incorporate, won't we, Bill?
Well, yeah, we can, and I think for the August flyer, we're, certainly a little ways out. But, yep, yeah, we can look at that for bur oak
For August,
for this one as well.
okay. Okay, Bill, thank you. Moving on to L and M. From Tom, can tell us what about the Center Street Hill and tree and shrub plantings and other plantings.
Yeah, certainly, commissioners and advisors. Not a real big update on Center Street Hill. We certainly have discussed some preliminary concepts and preliminary ideas. Nothing's been finalized. You know, we're nowhere near an approved plan or even a recommended plan. If there is a subcommittee interested in working on that, I think that would be a worthy project for a couple of commissioners to look into. One aspect that we are planning to move forward with is there's a mixed clump of coniferous and deciduous trees at the base of the hill on the Harmon Park side, the New Ulm North side of Center Street, and we're planning to get in there and make sure we remove any of the exotics and invasives and diseased or dying species and kind of clean that clump out and probably end up removing most of it. But as you know, there's some crab apples that have kind of lined the hill. There's a couple of different species in there, and some older ones and some newer ones. So it's certainly a project that I think the Tree Commission and others could begin to look more deeply into.
What's the timeline?
I think that's entirely up to, you know, the Tree Commission and ultimately the City Council. You know, it's a very gateway boulevard, gateway property, and a very important area. I think that a well-vetted plan is going to be critical and crucial, and to have the support of probably the Park and Rec Commission also, given the fact that there's park property on both north and south of the hill. Tree Commission, and then ultimately City Council, I presume, will be wanting to approve any plan. So I don't, you know, I'm not taking the lead on it. I think it's up to the commissioners if they want to tackle that, and it could be something that takes a couple of years to really put a solid plan together, and maybe it's a multi-phased, multifaceted approach too that takes a few years to completely implement.
Okay, thank you for bringing us up to date on that.
And the other tree plantings, you know, we have completed the 2014 tree plantings. That was a combination of Tree Commission and Park and Rec Department funds. We also now have a 2015 purchase order that's been carried over into 2016 to plant another 30 trees in the park system. That's fully funded by the Park and Rec Department. And then I think I have an additional approximately $10,000 in this year's Park and Rec Department budget for tree plantings. So we're putting together some concepts and proposals to, you know, reforest portions of the bike recreational trail and also parks, specifically focusing on shade trees in use areas of parks where we want some deciduous shade as opposed to windbreaks or something like that with conifers.
Okay,
So if the Tree Commission has any particular suggestions or wants to get involved with assisting us in planning the 2016 planting program, I'm more than happy to accept input from the commissioners or advisors.
I would like trees in the dog park. There are no trees in there. And there are
Yes.
lots of people who use the dog park, and there is no shade, and I think that would be my request.
Yes, we have that in the 2016 plan. I don't know exactly what species are putting together there. The local arborist that has got that purchase order is John Sanford of Bielik Tree Service, and he'll be assisting with planting approximately 30 deciduous trees in park areas, including some in the dog park.
Okay, good, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
sure you'd have to have some trees for the dogs.
Mhm.
Right,
The people were hot.
okay. I may be out of line at this point, talking about trees in various areas, But what has become of the shelves on the bike trail planning? Do you have anything on that?
Not a significant update on the recreational trail, the Fire Brick Forest. There's been no new action taken out there. Certainly, we've had some trees removed, trees die. Some of them are surviving and growing. But that's another park and trail area that needs continued work and some more reforestation.
Okay, thank you, Tom, for all the details.
Mm-hmm.
And the Tree City USA designation by you and Mark, we can have an update as to what's happening there.
I would recommend you ask Mark to come to the podium and give an update on that. I think he's got the
Okay.
most, I think he's got the most recent information. My understanding is that, I think it's good news.
Oh, all right, good.
Yes, Commissioners, Mark Schnobrick. I assisted Lisa and Tom in reapplying for the Tree City USA designation, and the word is that New Ulm, you should have getting word officially here very quickly, but in speaking with the DNR, which is who we initially submitted to, the state forester, and then from there, they make the approval whether to send it on to the Arbor Day Foundation or not. And basically, in a nutshell, if your state forester approves it, it's pretty much a done deal. Well, I spoke with Jennifer Teagarden with the Minnesota DNR and asked her, and it was kind of cute in the sense that I sent one email quickly and asked, what's the status of New Ulm's Tree City USA application? Boy, I don't know, I'll get back to you. And then within 3 minutes, one came back and said, well, I just talked to the Arbor Day Foundation and New Ulm's been approved. So congratulations on that. To let you know you've been doing that for so many years, it's about time you get the award again. So congratulations. And there was part of the grant, they did ask for the Green Corps whether your community was a Tree City USA designee or not, and now you can officially say on your grant application that yes, you are a Tree City USA designee. I wanted to make one other quick comment, and that was in regards to the Burr Oak blight you had spoken about. I know Jeff Anderson from your staff will be attending here now, the Shade Tree Short Course, and just a suggestion, might want to have him come back once he comes back from that, because Burr Oak blight and its current update will be presented by Dr. Tom Harrington from Iowa State. And Tom Harrington is the one person who found oak blight and labeled it. And so he is the man to get the direct information from. So Jeff would be up to snuff on exactly where Burr Oak blight is, what the best treatments are, like Tony had mentioned, arborists applying fungicide in there. So just a recommendation, maybe have him come and present. He would have the best information for you. You can proceed with the most up-to-date information after he returns from that, which will be happening here in, I think, a week and a half or a week or so, I think the conference is, so time well spent. But no, congratulations on the Tree City USA, so good.
Thank you, Mark. Any new business?
Mr. Vice Chair, I have a couple things I was just going to mention. One being, I've had a couple people call me this winter stating that concerning trees on the boulevard. One was, again, with walnuts. They would like to remove their tree and plant something new. And the other one was with their green ash. Not because so much of the ash borer, okay, but because of ash flower mite galls, which many of you, if you're wondering what that is, that's them little brown globs hanging up in the tree caused from a mite feeding on the growth. And they fall off and they get all over and everything, make a mess too. And both of them I had said that, you know, because there's a city ordinance, unless the tree is dead, it probably can't be removed. But is there anything, are we gonna allow people, if they feel they wanna plant a new tree in that place, take out the old one, even though it's not dead, and replace it with something more feasible, or not? I just, you know, I'm sure some of them, these people will be coming in and to the office and asking, you know. And also part two of that. So this morning, when I dropped my kids off at school, I parked by Fifth North, and I thought I'd take a little walk, okay? So I walked 4 streets. These are my little notes here. To do a little tree survey, I started at Fifth North. Took me about 40 minutes, but it was a nice walk. Fifth North, I walked Washington Street to 12th, came back on Jefferson, did Franklin and Payne, okay? Just for example, I'll only give you one. Franklin Street, and what I did is, maples I divided in 2 categories. Hard maples, soft maples. Your soft maples are your autumn blaze, your silver maples. Hard maples, I put your Norway maples in there and sugar maples, and then break it down to a lot of species because it's hard to tell this time. And then ash, there was some green ash, any ash. If it's black ash, green ash, lindens, again, all lindens, hackberries, and then if I found something other than that, which I did find a few things, I labeled them also. So, just for example, on that stretch of Franklin Street, in them 7 blocks, there were 37 ash trees, which is 27%, okay? Of the soft maples, there were 29, and hard maples 32, which gave us 46% maples. Pretty typical of the streets. About half of them are maples. And I think we see that with the tree reimbursement, that it's even higher, isn't it, William?
Yeah, you know, I believe we've hovered around that 50 to 60% maples. I would say the other, I guess, you know, maybe even higher than that if you remove the windbreak specific trees.
Yeah, so, and, you know, there was every once in a while I come across a walnut. I did find one catalpa out there, one oak tree actually on the boulevard, which is good. Hackberries, there was a fair number of those. And lindens, not too many lindens. Yeah, so it was only, out of 4 blocks, I only found 1 honey locust. You know, it's just amazing that there wasn't any more of those. And 2 Kentucky coffee trees. So there's a little variety out there, and a mulberry, you know, here and there, and an elm. But you can see that over about 75% of those trees consist of maples and ash. So that's something to think about. And that was just 4 sections of streets there that I took a look at. And it's probably pretty, you might find in some of the newer areas, you find a little more diversity, but, you know, where I walked, you could tell a lot of soft maples were there, and that was probably something that, I'm guessing when those homes were built, people dug those out of the woods, and everybody else gave somebody a soft maple. And so back to my question is, and I did see, you know, when you do all this walking, I did see that trees that, you know, there was some that should just be taken down because they're half of a tree left, you know, the rest is there, it's growing, but I think we could do better. And then there was one block, the whole boulevard, there was 2 trees by one house, the rest did not have a tree. So, you know, encourage people to plant some, because I didn't see a lot of young trees. So that brings me back to my first question is, what's the thoughts on if people want to remove a tree that is healthy but maybe undesirable to put a new one in?
Well, I believe that what's on the books, we can't do that. At least as far as the city is concerned, and removing boulevard trees, they have to be dead or near dead. You don't remove it because you don't like it, right?
Well, Mr. Vice Chair, the tree reimbursement removal planting criteria was set up originally by the Tree Commission. My suggestion would be perhaps you want to review it at a future meeting, and if you want to make adjustments, you would eventually have to get approval from the city council. It comes back to everyone has a different opinion and a different judgment about species, so the more specific you are, I think if you read them now, it basically says, as Mr. Gugesberg is referring to, it has to be basically an unhealthy tree to be able to be removed, because the city, through the tree commission, is trying to maintain the healthy,
Yeah.
urban forest that we have. So if someone comes in and says they don't like a walnut and it's healthy, we can't permit it to be removed. So I think that's kind of the gist of it. If there's a certain species that you would like to make an exception for, you could make that recommendation, certainly. As far as promoting, I think that was the original intent of the tree reimbursement program. When you offer $125 per tree, you're offering an incentive to someone that wants a tree. There's frankly a lot of people out there that don't want to have a tree, and they get very upset if you try and plant one on a street roadway project or other projects. So there's both sides, three sides to every story, I guess, in my judgment.
Well, and if I may kick on that, he's correctly right. From my viewpoint of boulevard trees, now, my assistant commissioner, and I used to have to do it for 11 years, I have to go look at all the sidewalks for trip hazards. And 90% of the trip hazards are caused by that tree that you just planted, pushing the sidewalk up. So when the city comes in and plants a tree on Steve's street projects, 10 years from now, I gotta go down there and tell them, okay, we planted the tree, but now you gotta fix your sidewalk. And that happens a lot. And one of the other things, when they take out the permit, we grind out the stump. You'd be surprised how many people think that they take out a tree, they can plant a new one right where that stump was. Well, that's not the case. We can only go 2 inches sub-cut. That's as far as our stump cutter will go down. So that's also something else to consider when they take it out. It has to go 10 feet either side of where it was.
And that's very good points. But like I said, yeah, it's a tough situation. I know what you're in, because I hear about it too. And like I said, they want us to plant a tree, and then when the sidewalk's damaged, who has to pay for it? And that's why some of them refuse to plant trees on the boulevard.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of them want to come down when their sidewalk gets tagged, because the tree did lift it. There's a lot of requests that they want that tree out of there before they fix their sidewalk, because they don't want to have to do it again in 10 years. We see that a lot too.
Are there certain trees where that makes that happen more frequently?
Well, generally, the soft maples, they have surface roots, and they'll come up, and yeah, there's a lot of them out there, so it does happen.
Maybe if people knew that, they would steer away a little bit from the maples if they knew it could cause a problem. Because I would hate to see people take a tree down because they don't like it. Fine, but are they going to plant another one? And who follows up on that? And, I think the city blocks that have no trees on the boulevards don't look nice at all. But I'm a tree lover, so.
Well, and I think part of it is, until we have, an elm turn red fall color, or some of these other ones, because that's the main reason everybody likes this red fall color, if it's a sugar maple or this new autumn blaze. They love fall color. They want to see the decorative appearances.
Right.
So.
But I wonder if people could be educated one way or another, where if they're going to plant a boulevard tree, if you plant this tree, this may cause sidewalk problems. If you plant this other tree, you're not going to have that issue, and that might help people. I mean, we might have more diversity, and we might not have angry people because their sidewalks are lifting.
Which is a very good point. And the other thing is, going back to these walnuts, I know they are a hazard, when they're on the boulevard. Kids walk, people walk, you don't want people tripping on them. And then a lot of times, I'm not going to say it, but kids do pick them up and throw them, and, there's vehicles there. So I can see their point with the walnut. But the hard part is, if you do take down a walnut there, you still got the roots, and even though you could grind out the stump, there's still going to be roots in that soil. They're going to be toxic, to other trees, so you're kind of limited to what you could plant.
Mr. Vice Chair, may I ask a question? Tony, you mentioned you walk 4 streets, 7 blocks each of the streets?
Yep. Well, and I didn't have to go on the other side, I could just see the trees on the other side,
Oh,
so.
sure.
But-
Sounds to me like you've started the tree survey in J,
Oh,
in a subcommittee.
well, it is, you know, when you work with trees all the time, and Marcus, you can just drive and look at the trees, you know what kind they are.
It's interesting.
Until you see something unusual, then once in a while you have to stop and find it out. But it's pretty typical, like I said, you can see what we have in here. And, you know, a lot of maples, which I love maples, but, you know, if the ash borer comes here and we get some maple disease, it's gonna look real thin.
Any other comments? And if that's the case, hearing none, our next meeting is Thursday, May 5th. May 5th at 4 PM in these chambers. And then we are adjourned.